Hey there, my name is Stephen Fluin and this is Demos with Angular. I tried something a little bit different and it didn't quite work out. I tried doing a live coding session, which I think is a really good idea, and I'm going to try it again in the future. But for now, this is a slightly edited version where I take a Angular application that I built a few months ago and I update it using the latest version of Angular, version 5. And then I also go ahead and update the service worker that I use to the latest version, which is also now v5. And so all those things are in sync. And this was a pretty quick, pretty easy app update. Hope you enjoy. And so I haven't done this. I haven't prepared this application at all. This is just an app I built a while ago. And so the idea is that we're going to run into challenges, steps of the process that I hadn't foreseen, and then we'll kind of overcome them as I go, and I'll talk through the process of kind of what I'm thinking about so you can understand what's going on in my head the whole way along. So the application that we're going to be looking at today is a fidget spinner. So this is a relatively simple application. It tries to realistically emulate a fidget spinner. So it's got some physics, it's got some slowdown. It works a little bit on mobile, works on desktop pretty well. It's got momentum, all those sorts of things. And if we look at this application actually built in 4.1.3. And so this is a open source Angular application. You can actually find it on my GitHub, stephenfluin/fidget-spinner. And what we're going to do is we're going to start completely from scratch, updating this application that I haven't touched in over 6 months now. So let's get some of the kind of simpler steps out of the way here. So I'm going to git clone the repository. So it's going to download it, should go pretty quick, and then I'm going to cd into it and run yarn. So I don't know if I was using yarn before. It looks like I was not because I'm not seeing any sort of lock file. But we're going to go ahead and add that. So let's see if we can make this bigger so everyone can see. Perfect. All right, so we're installing all the dependencies from the npm. And let's just make sure the application works first of all. It's always a good place to get started. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Visual Studio Code here. Should get a nice window. Launch directly to our folder. Got an app module. Pretty simple stuff. HTML and component. So this is one of the more simple apps that you can build. And now let's go ahead and check on our yarn install. Perfect. So now we can do ng-serve and we'll see if our app actually works. So the local version of CLI 1.0.0. So obviously this was a little bit of a while ago, but everything should kind of work out of the box. We'll see if this is working. And so I'm going to open up and it is working. Perfect. So we've got it compiling locally. We've got it running. All right. So I'm going to use this Angular update guide in order to understand and see kind of the commands that will help me along in terms of doing this update. Show me how to update. So this is a relatively simple app. So really all we should have to do is run a command that looks like this. So this will install all the latest NPM packages. And so it will get all the right version of TypeScript, the right version of RxJS. So I'm just going to paste this in. And so what this is doing is this is pinning all of my Angular repositories to this caret 5.0.0, which should update across any minor or any patch. So those are all updates that should be safe. They shouldn't contain any sort of breaking changes. And then version 5 of Angular also requires TypeScript 2.4.2 for now, and RxJS 5.5.2. So some of the work that was done with RxJS now has kind of these much smaller, much better lettable operators. So Angular CLI, compiler CLI is already in dev dependencies, so we should remove that. And then what else? TypeScript is already in dev dependencies. So let's just have both of those as normal dependencies. So let's go ahead and rerun this command. It should go pretty quick the second time. Unless I break my package.json files. All right, so I have a package here, Angular Service Worker, installed, but I wasn't actually using it. So now we've done the npm update. So if we type ng version, we should see that everything is on the latest. And one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up to the latest version of the CLI locally, which it looks like it may have done for me, but I think there's a newer version. So let's do yarn add at Angular/CLI at next. So let's actually go ahead past the latest kind of public release of the Angular CLI. And this should give me, I think, an RC of 1.6. And then let's also go ahead and add Angular such service worker at latest as well. So I'm going to say yarn add this. Oops. Add Angular service worker at, and let's just say caret 5.0.0 so we keep it in sync with the rest of them. So this should have been adding a lock file because I'm using yarn, and then all these things should be nicely synced up. And when I run ng version, all the versions should be the same. And of course, it's in a dependency, and it wants me to add it first there. All right, so we've got the versions of our packages all synced up. So let's actually go ahead and just run ng-serve and see what happens. So we should now see any sort of errors that are coming from TypeScript, any sort of errors regarding our components. Compiled successfully, so that's always a good sign here. And now we're going to refresh. It looks like I'm on 5.0.0, and it looks like the application works perfectly. So that was actually much easier than I anticipated. I thought they'd have to go and break and fix a couple things. So let's go one step further since we have a little bit of time. I'm also going to go ahead and add a service worker to this application using the support that landed in CLI 1.6. So let's take a look here what we've got. So I installed the service worker package. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the CLI that I would like a service worker here, which it's already doing. So I'm surprised that was working at all. And now I'm going to go to my app module, and I'm going to import the service worker module dot register. And this is going to take a couple things here. So first I'm going to say import service worker module from @Angular service worker. Just so you can see it here. And so the service worker should have a register method, and this is going to take a string. So this is the script, so I believe it is ngsw worker.js, but we'll see when we do a production build what that file is supposed to be. And then it can take optionally a scope and an enabled. So let's go ahead and say enabled, and we're going to base this off of our environment setting. And I will only want to generate the service worker in production. So let's see if we can just import that. So this environments file is coming from this environments folder, where in production, we're seeing that this is set to true, and in development, this file is set to false. It's a really nice thing that CLI kind of swaps out automatically for you. So we've registered ngsw worker, and now let's actually just see what it does. So let's do a production build. So this production build is going to do all of the ahead of time compilation, compile all the templates down into JavaScript, pull in the CSS, all the things that kind of you want to do as part of a production build. But this time, because we set up the CLI to also generate a service worker, it's also going to take that service worker and add that to our project. We should probably actually get an error. The error should probably say that we don't have a service worker config file. And so I'm going to actually go ahead and proactively resolve that. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ng-new a new project. So let's just go here and say ng generate test app -- service worker. Oops, ng-new, sorry. And so what this is going to do is it's going to generate a new application with a service worker. And then there's one particular file that I want from this, which is the service worker configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this file, and I'm going to put it into my fidget spinner app/source. All right, we may have to rerun that production build. Yeah, so they were expecting to find the ngsw config file. It didn't exist, and so we saw an error. Let's go ahead and rerun this production build. And so what we're expecting to see is when we take a look at this, and it's going to probably be on a different port, but when we look at the application tab, we should see a service worker being installed. And so if we look at the production one, we will notice that there's worker basic. So this is an older one, so I'm going to unregister that. And what we'll do is we'll actually serve this production build from port 8000, which is just an easy way of serving. So we'll cd into the dist folder in a second, serve from port 8000, and we'll be able to access the service worker that's being registered here. So I'm going to cd into the dist folder, python-simple HTTP server. So this is just and you can run any HTTP server. And we're going to go to, let's try that again, localhost 8000. All right, so we're seeing the same Angular application, but this time when we look in the application tab, we're going to see NGSW worker. We're going to see the caches of all the assets as appropriate. And if I take this application offline, what we should actually see is that it keeps working. And there it is. So we have now built a v5 application with service worker. It took us about 10 minutes, so not too bad. Obviously, some updates are more complicated, and I'll go through some of the challenges in another video. So my name is Stephen Fluen. This was Demos with Angular, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.